Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Roshi Joan Halifax, who's here to share with us her new card deck, In a Moment, in a Breath, 55 Meditations to Cultivate a Courageous Heart. In today's world, it seems even more difficult than ever to cultivate compassion as we walk our path. But what if we had reminders throughout our day that can help us along? Roshi Joan Halifax is here to share with us just that. She's a Buddhist teacher, founder and head teacher at Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a social activist, author, and in her early years was an anthropologist at Columbia University and University of Miami School of Medicine. She is a pioneer in the field of end-of-life care. She has lectured on the subject of death and dying at many academic institutions and medical centers around the world. She received a National Science Foundation Fellowship in Visual Anthropology, was an honorary research fellow at Harvard University, and a distinguished visiting scholar at the Library of Congress. She received the Pioneer Medal for Outstanding Leadership in Healthcare, the Sandy McKinnon Award from Convent Health in Canada, Pioneer Medal for Outstanding Leadership in Healthcare, received an honorary DSc from the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. She has received many other awards and honors from institutions around the world for her work as a social and environmental activist and in the end-of-life care field. So let's welcome to the show, Roshi Joan Halifax.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. You know, this idea really came about during the 3 years of this pandemic, but it represents, or the vision for this beautiful work. It represents more than a half a century of practice, of study, and also of really looking deeply at how important a meditation practice is in our lives. But for many people, doing a long meditation practice is not congenial or accessible or easy. And so I realized that what I wanted to do was to create the possibility for people in a moment, in a breath, to drop in deeply. And so that's the inspiration for this beautiful work.
Well, I'm so glad we get to talk about this today. And so with this card deck, how is it intended to be used? Is it for people who are really experienced in meditation or people who are brand new?
You know, I'm an old-time meditator, so I use it. But also for people who are absolutely new to meditation, just taking one card, sitting with it, really allowing yourself to practice with it, you know, in reading the brief texts, which are like small poems, and letting yourself feel into the experience of the practice. So I think that this work is very useful for those of us who are longtime practitioners, maybe doing one kind of practice all the time, and we want to enrich our palate. And so we can enrich our palate because we have 55 possibilities here that are unfolded in the deck. And there are various ways that we can use it. For example, in fact, the way the deck is sequenced is a very deep unfolding of practice through time. So you can do it one card after another, or you can pick cards at random, or you can photograph the cards, for example, and have them on your iPhone, which I think is really fun and really beautiful. Or you can do this as a kind of interaction with a community. In other words, for example, you can have people sitting in a circle and each choosing a card and then offering a particular meditation. So, I mean, it's a very flexible platform.
I was so impressed how you have the cards also set up in a way that talk about earth and fire, and I'd love for you to go through those with us.
Yeah. So there are five elements, in one particular system. So it's earth, water, fire, air, and space. And so the earth element is really about being grounded. And the water element is about our emotions, compassion. And the fire element is, really related to energy and relationship. And let's see, earth, air, fire, air. Air, this is about, needless to say, about our capacity to move in the world. And space is about vastness, boundlessness. So the meditations are arranged according to the elements. And, one of the fun things that I did, and I'm continuing to do as a practice, is calligraphy. So I paint almost every day on Japanese shikishi, which are these painting boards. And I paint ensos that are which are circles. I paint, wild flowers, water, mountains, dragons, and so forth. And so, what really made me happy was that some of the paintings can be found on the reverse side of the cards. It's just, it's one of those things that you do as a practice. And then someone says, "Oh, Roshi Joan, I really love those paintings. Why don't you make them, a little more public?" So here are a few in the deck that are a little more public.
I'm so glad you did that. I thought the enso that you made was just stunning. It just has such a vibrance to it, and the colors just pop from that. So I was so impressed just by seeing that. It just takes a lot. When I think you even meditate on that, it just brings you to a lot of deeper understanding.
Thank you, Marianne. Anyway, I do things really from the base of joy. So those paintings exemplify my joy, my enthusiasm, but also the meditations. Each meditation is a world unto itself. And doing this practice in the way that I have for so many years, and then elaborating the practice so it's more accessible to people from different walks of life. So I think some people will find, for example, the practices in the earth sequence to be very grounding. And of course, in relation to my work with dying people, there's a whole section on care of the dying and of meeting death and grief. And I think those cards are very useful for those who are being with dying.
Especially in today's world where many of us are faced with that more so than ever.
Well, indeed, it's, I think that the past 3 years, the pandemic has, been a real wake up call for us around, being with dying, being with loss, with grief, but also the profound value of having a contemplative practice that truly cultivates the qualities of heart and of mind and of body that allow us to meet whatever is emerging in the present moment, whether it's very difficult or very beautiful.
I understand that you talk about the word meditation is like the word sport. And for people
Yes.
who are new to meditation, how would you identify that?
Well, sport can include swimming and running and high jumping and boxing and even dancing in some cases. And so it's a more general term that includes many different valences or aspects of activities. And the same is true of meditation. So in meditation, for example, there's a whole range of practices around the development of concentration. There's another series of practices that are associated with the development of the capacity to have insight. Others to cultivate particular qualities of heart and mind that are beneficial, like compassion or loving kindness or sympathetic joy or equanimity, or a whole series of practices that open us up into the realization of the fact that there's no inherent self. It's really a radical view. And then a series of practices that direct us toward the truth of our mortality and us coming in a beneficial relationship with the fact that we will die and how precious this life is and what can we do in this life to use it well, not only to benefit ourselves, but most particularly to benefit others.
What is the most common meditation practice in Buddhism?
I probably the most common or well known is breath practice, bringing your attention to your breath or to some object of concentration. But a breath is quite useful for many people because it kind of sews body and mind together. And also, it's immediately accessible. If we're not breathing, we got a problem. So there we are. We don't have to visualize. We can just bring our attention to the sensation of breath in the body. And that's pretty common throughout all of Buddhism and in many other religious practices as well.
I understand in the work that you do, you talk about how an important step of meditation is to cultivate a compassionate heart. And what does that mean for people? Because I think today we might be kind of a little far away from that.
Yes. Oh, I know many people who have a real compassionate heart, but there is it's a little bit mean spirited out there, So, um, why is that important? We know that from the point of view of neuroscience and social psychology, that experiencing compassion actually enhances our immune response. It elevates our moral sensibility. It enhances our longevity, and there are many other beneficial effects. But really, we don't behave compassionately in order to get something, if you understand. It's that spontaneous, naturally arising experience in the presence of suffering where we deeply want to benefit another. And so the benefit, of course, accrues to ourselves because of what I, just mentioned. It's elevating. It's wonderful to be of service to others, but also those who receive compassion benefit. And one of the interesting things, Marianne, is that those who witness compassion, they also benefit. And in fact, the benefit can take on a very interesting dimension, and that is they'll want to be compassionate themselves, and then it's a kind of viral effect. Compassion catches on. So, it's a three-pronged program, if you will. Those who experience compassion benefit, those who receive it benefit, and those who witness it benefit.
You think it's like that saying, we never know how far that ripple will go out in the world.
Exactly.
Oh,
And these practices, Marianne, that I offer here, I would say that the entire deck is really directed toward the cultivation of compassion. But it's done, in ways that are direct and indirect, because I feel that more than any other quality that we could manifest at this time in the life of our world, the most important one is compassion, because it encompasses attentional balance, concentration. It encompasses our capacity for empathy and concern. It encompasses insight and so forth. And the world really can use a lot more compassion.
I agree with you on that. Well, and you have a quote here that I thought was just so powerful, and it made so much sense. It made me stop and really think about what it was that you were saying is watering the seeds of our natural wisdom is cultivated through specific practices. And that's so true. I mean, we have to work on these things.
Well, I think one of the beautiful things about that sentence, Marianne, is that those seeds exist within all beings. And, with all human beings anyway. I worked at the penitentiary of New Mexico for 6 years as a volunteer. I worked in death row and maximum security. I worked only with men who had murdered people. And it was a very powerful experience for me because there I saw, even the most tormented or hardened or angry person, in prison to keep him out of harm's way, so to speak, and harming others. Somehow I always was able to find a place of basic goodness within each of those men that I worked with. Not saying that I would want them released out onto the streets. No, the patterns and the conditioning that they had been subjected to were so deep and so negative. It's a long healing road. But, I had this experience of really understanding this notion of seeds, within every human being, there are seeds of goodness. And I feel like our work is about how can we water those seeds. And I feel the deck gives us a good opportunity. We're so busy and living such complicated lives, and people don't feel that they have time, but they can do this in a moment, in a breath.
I love that. And you also talk about the virtue of brevity in this, which I think is so important.
Yes, I think this is one of the things that I've learned about being able to state shift. In other words, I can be in this very intense working process, and then I'll take an inhale, exhale, allow my attention move to the sensation of my feet on the floor, just let myself be grounded, and my whole body, heart, and mind shifts. So this is, learning how to state shift, which the cards provide a perfect vehicle for learning how to do that.
I also like the walking meditation card because for those that maybe are new to walking meditation, it gives them a new thought of how they can be just in the world in their daily, maybe they're walking to one place or another, campus or work or what have you.
Exactly. I mean, really, the point of practice is not to just have it on Saturday or Sunday, our special days, but to actualize this practice in our everyday life.
Now, does it matter how our posture is when we start our meditation practice?
Well, what's wonderful about Buddhism is very flexible. So the Buddha, articulated 4 postures, that is supine, sitting, walking, and standing. But for most of us, we'll be doing meditation in the sitting posture. And posture is important because it influences the quality of our mind. If you're hunched over on your computer, your lungs are compressed, you're sort of hanging over your heart. And that's a very contrary posture to the quality of uprightness that we're endeavoring to cultivate when we meditate. So this strong back, a back that is flexible, conductive, balanced, alive, upright, that's really important. This capacity to uphold ourselves in the midst of any conditions. And then the open front, and that is, I talk about strong back, soft front, that this is in the cards. And so, that soft front is compassion, which is really strengthened by our equanimity, by our strong back. So, I really appreciate how in my own lineage of Zen, there's a great emphasis on our uprightness, on our posture. Very, very wonderful, very helpful.
I was just so amazed, but not surprised when I read the section that talked about how in sharing the practice, you were working with people that had AIDS diagnosis and they were dying. And I'd love for you to share that story about leaving the cards with them.
Yeah, that was such a moving experience. It's a friend of mine who had AIDS and was in a brownstone in Brooklyn, really having a hard time. And this was, in the early years of AIDS. And, someone who felt very rejected, very shunned by his friends and his family. And so I wasn't at this point living in New York, but I went to New York often to sit with him. And this is exactly what I did. He needed a reference point. He needed, I couldn't be there all the time, but he needed something that would bring him back to the peace that he experienced when we were together. And so that is the first card I ever made, actually, which I gave to Kenny. And it was by his bed, and he every day used it for practice. And I learned from Kenny how important it is to have something like this accessible, that, it's a physical object. Maybe you want to read the whole deck, but one card, just one card, is a kind of anchor and reference point. We don't have to make it, the whole palette, but something that somebody can come back to again and again and get grounded and feel resourced and find peace.
I like the examples of how we can create a habit by, you talked about taking a photo of the card. We can leave it in our car, by our bed. I mean, there's lots of places that we can have it with us.
Well, one of the ways that these short meditations have been used is nurses have actually put them on the screen of their computers, as a kind of reference point. So I think it's wonderful, like the grace meditation, which has been used by many educators and by clinicians. So having that grace meditation accessible, on one's computer screen all the time, even, as you're working on something else, filling a medical record or whatever, filling out a medical record, it allows you to remember really what you're doing, why you're here, with this ethos of service at the very heart of things.
What do you want listeners and people who purchase the deck to really take away from the work that they're doing with this?
I want what is best for them. Every person has a different different need, and I just created this very rich and wide range of possibilities for people to experiment with. I love this quote from Ty. He says, our own lives are the means for which we experiment with truth. And so it's bringing these practices into one's life in a very humble way, at seeing what works, seeing what serves. What I want for everybody is for them to be free of suffering. That's what I want. And I know for my over a half a century in being a meditation practitioner, my own life has changed so much. Yes, I'm the same person I was 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, but I'm also a very different person. And the person that I am now is a person that's been shaped by my contemplative practice. And what I learned, is that wonderful doing long-term retreats, wonderful practicing for 2 or 3 hours every day, but also wonderful in a moment, in a breath.
And for those people that maybe can't attend a retreat and they have a very busy work schedule, this is such a great reference. I was so impressed because it allows us to take our practice everywhere we go.
Thank you so much, Marianne. That is my hope. Yeah, I really appreciate your wonderful questions. And also, I'd be so interested to see what you and what others discover in using the deck.
Oh, I'm having fun with it already. I definitely am. Roshi Joan, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about the deck and be part of your community?
Wonderful. Well, I'm the abbot of Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're local, but we're also international. We're online every day. We offer our meditation practice is open to the wider world twice a day, 7 a.m. Mountain Time and 5:30 p.m. In the afternoon. And we have almost all of our programs are accessible on Zoom. And the ones that are online are by donation. And we've opened our doors somewhat so that we're, inviting no more than about 30 people into our retreats at this time, into this really beautiful place. So if people want to learn more, they can access on our website, www.upaya.org, www.upaya.org. And we are doing a lot in many different areas, in traditional Buddhism, in classical Zen, but also in chaplaincy training. Starting today at Upaya is the Varela International Symposium, which brings together philosophers and neuroscientists and contemplatives in a really radical conversation about precariousness. And that's what we're jumping into this evening. Or next week with people who are Indigenous, and then myself and Wendy Johnson, about the whole, all of the issues related to what it means to preserve the seeds of ancient cultures. So and meditation, if you're here on site 3 times a day. And one of the great ways to access Upaya is actually to come and be a resident. We have a wonderful resident program where people come from 4 to 6 months or to a year, and with daily practice and learning so much. And the resident community is very vibrant and really loving. It's a great place. I'm so happy. I, live in a place where practice is so vital.
Roshi Joan, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, you've been wonderful in your questions, and I look forward to our next encounter.
Well, thank you, Roshi Joan. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your card deck, In a Moment, in a Breath, 55 Meditations to Cultivate a Courageous Heart. We're going to pause here for a quick moment, and we'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
With Breath Hub, you'll experience the transformative power of breath as it harmonizes your body, mind, and spirit. Recommended by experts in fitness, sports, psychology, and medicine. Meet the scientific way of being well. Breath Hub. Breathe better, live better.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of Fire Department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
Are you looking to untangle life's riddles? Discover the profound teachings of Dr. Shai Tabali, renowned philosopher, best-selling author, and your guide to self-empowerment. With methods that harmonize psychological and spiritual principles, Dr. Tabali's wisdom offers a pathway to holistic transformation. Take that first step today and join thousands globally and embrace the journey to higher consciousness. Visit shytobali.com, that's SHAITUBALI.com now.
Are you chasing profitability yet losing fulfillment? Let me introduce you to your solution, the Relaunch Company. I'm Hillary DeCesar, an entrepreneurial performance coach, fearless leader of the Relaunch Company, here to help put the pedal to the metal and relaunch your business your way. Visit www.therelaunch.com. Take the free quiz to learn 3 steps towards waving goodbye to burnout and hello to success.
The book Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, authored by Danny Carroll, is on sale at Amazon now. Licensed psychologist and psychotherapist Tessa Antia-John-Guerra commented, "This is one of the most empowering books on the topic of cancer you will ever read." Award-winning author T.L. Needham commented, "This recommended book can be understood by anyone seeking answers, hope, and alternatives to a terminal diagnosis. Buy it now on Amazon.com.
Pandemonium. Fast forward 20 years. A U.S. president seizes control of all U.S. missiles, the power grid, the banking system, and every computer in America as he hides in an underground bunker. Pandemonium, a captivating sci-fi thriller where a hidden war, psychics, aliens, artificial intelligence, and transcendental love collide with the latest media technology. Pandemonium, live to all devices. Get your copy on paperback or digital. Free sample at getpsychic.org.
Hello, Dr. Cutler here. Do you experience bloating, heartburn, food craving, bowel irregularity, food sensitivities, weight issues? If you do not digest your food, you may be deficient in macronutrients, which your body needs for optimal health. DrEllenCutler.com teaches that this is an enzyme deficiency. I believe the most important supplement is a full-spectrum digestive enzyme, Dr. Ellen's Way Digestive Enzymes. Hear more about it at DrEllenCutler.com.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.